Alright, what's up, fellas? So, last week I did not record a podcast, so I apologize for that. I had a surgery in my mouth last Monday, so I was kind of, my mind was preoccupied a little bit. I wasn't thinking that much about ball as much, but I am back. Honestly, I think for the rest of the season I might go bi-weekly just to kind of help alleviate my schedule a little bit, because, the season's winding down and there's not a whole lot to talk about. Plus, there's only a couple weeks left. We'll do a recap at the end of the season, kind of look at, an overview of everything and kind of assess what we feel the future of the Marlins is. But I wanted to start today by taking a step back into the past, so to speak. I want to recap how everybody that the Marlins traded away are doing, basically. So I wanted to start with Josh Bell. I'm going to go over a few. I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Marlins. Well, technically 8 Marlins that were traded this year. 1 Marlin that was traded last year. And the underrated player of the week / episode, I guess now, is another former Marlin. But we'll get to that when we get to it. I wanted to start with Josh Bell, who got traded to Arizona to kind of fill in for Christian Walker while he's been hurt. In that time, he's done, honestly, pretty good. He started out hot. I remember seeing that he was on fire when he got there, which he was on fire when he left Miami, so it just made sense that it continued. He's cooled down a little bit since then, but he's played in 25 games thus far, has 4 home runs, 4 doubles, and a triple, which is crazy. 12 RBIs, 61 on the year between the two, and he's hitting 278. So he's not doing bad. Overall, he's definitely been a positive addition for them. He's filling a void for a potential playoff team, which, they were in the World Series last year. So in spite of whatever struggles they've had this year, and they've had a couple guys take a step back, I recognize that. But they, with him there, they're able to kind of keep the ball rolling a bit. Moving on to the big name, Jazz. He's had a historic start, actually, with New York, which is a double-edged sword. He got hurt a little bit. I think he missed about 10 games with I want to say left calf strain, something like that. Or I can probably scroll down here and figure out what it was. Let's see here. Left elbow sprain, that's right. It was, okay. So, left elbow sprain for Jazz. Missed a couple games. But 3 doubles, 9 home runs, and he had 7 in his first 12 games with New York, which is a record, a franchise record for New York. But that's one of those first player to do something on the third Tuesday of every month. It's a thin parameter record, which a record's a record. So, he's also the first player with the name Jazz to hit 2 home runs in a game for New York or something, because of course he is. Nobody else has a first name with Jazz. I made that up. It's probably true though. But just kind of outlining that kind of record. But yeah, in the short sample size, 21 games with New York, 82 at bats, 9 home runs, 6 stolen bases, hasn't been caught yet. And he's hitting 293 with an OPS of 992. So he's nearly one-dotting with New York. On the season, he's still looking pretty decent. His average is slightly above what his career average is. OPS is slightly above what his career average is. He's slashing 256, 325 on-base percentage, and a 776 OPS. So pretty good for this year, I'll say. He's 2 stolen bases away from 30, and he's got 22 home runs. So he has an outside shot at a 30-30 this year. I don't necessarily think it happens because he has to hit 8 home runs in a month, which is possible, especially for him. He's shown he can hit 7 in 12 games. So, it's not outside. It's not a stretch of the imagination to think he can do that. But it's just about him catching fire and being pitched to in a lineup that is full of boppers, which, again, is a possibility because that happens when you're surrounded by good players. Good play is contagious. That's something that I've kind of seen throughout my life is good play is contagious. Not to say that, the Marlins haven't had good play, but he's been the sole driving factor, I feel like, for a little minute with Miami. Now that he's with a team where he doesn't have to lead, he said it himself, he doesn't have to lead. He has Aaron Judge and Juan Soto there to lean on. And, Judge in and of himself, he's a guy that you follow just because he's 6'7" and 280 pounds or whatever. Like, he's a guy that could run through a wall, and you could follow him through the hole he creates because he's so big. And I say that affectionately. I love Aaron Judge. He's one of the best players in the game, both personality-wise and ability-wise. He's probably going to win an MVP this year, and it's deserved. I hope he gets to 60 again. It's been a fun run to see him go. Honestly, seeing Judge and Ohtani in the World Series would be really, really interesting. Just because of the fact that, it would just be, I don't want to say storybook, but I feel like you have to have a World Series where you have the two fan favorites, I'm not a fan of either the Dodgers or the Yankees, just because I don't, and I know it's a little ironic, me being a Marlins fan, but I don't like teams that buy their way into championships. They both historically spend a lot of money, but I just have my opinions about that. But it's one of those things where there are that matchup, Yankees and Dodgers in the World Series, would be probably the most future Hall of Famers in a World Series matchup that we could have at the current moment. Unless there's some team with a bunch of absolute freaks that are young, like the Padres maybe, Luis Arraez, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis, maybe Ha-Seong Kim lights it up. I don't know. It's just one of them things that I see the Dodgers with a bunch of studs in their prime right now, and I see the Yankees with a bunch of studs. And they, studs that earned the money that they're getting paid. It's just what it is. But it'd be cool to see, a former Marlin, I guess, now in the series. Which, it's bound to happen. We have probably one on every team at this point. But moving on from Jazz, we got Brian De La Cruz. No, actually. No, yeah, I wanted to do Brian De La Cruz. So we'll go there next. Brian De La Cruz traded to Pittsburgh, has played in 23 games. Honestly, not having that great a time in Pittsburgh. Only the one home run, 4 doubles, hitting .227, OPS of .557. Not great, but small sample size. It's, hopefully a matter of time for him to turn it on. He has this year a downtick on his production. When he was with Miami, his power production was up, but his on base and his slugging was up slightly, but his on base was down. And I think that just comes to him wanting to do more with the bat and kind of hunting a little too much and not, taking the walks that he was given. But I digress. He the power surge kind of shifted the extra base hits from more of an emphasis on doubles to an emphasis on homers, because with Miami in 2023 he had 32 doubles and 19 home runs. His time with Miami this year, he had 19 doubles and 18 home runs. So it was nearly an even split this year, whereas last year I don't want to say doubled, but he had a significantly higher amount of doubles to home runs. So he just was starting to put the ball over the wall a little bit more. I don't really think his swing changed. I don't think his approach changed all that much. Let me actually take a look at the walks. I'm curious. Yeah, he doesn't walk a lot. We know that. He's up there. He's hunting. And maybe it was just an adjustment from pitching to try to bait him a little more. I'm not sure. Can't speak on what the pitchers have been doing to him, I guess. We'll continue with the trend of guys who were on the team this year and were traded. I'm moving that guy to the end. We'll kind of scoot these guys up. So Next, I want to talk about two pitchers that were traded to San Diego, and that's Tanner Scott and Brian Hoeing. Hoeing, between the two of them, has been the better piece, seemingly. Tanner Scott, I'll kind of start there. 14 games with San Diego that he's pitched in so far with a 2.77 ERA. That's honestly good. That's not bad, but it's not the 1.18 he had with Miami. He's been used more as a setup guy in that kind of role, not like towards the back end, but not a back end piece. 5 holds, 2 saves, but he's 2 for 2 in ops. On the season, he's 20 for 22. So, like, that's with Miami included in there, which is good, in my opinion. It's good. You just don't blow a lot of games. But 13 innings over 14 games, so he's kind of been used in short spells, but he's given up more hits in a shorter amount of time. Not more hits on the season, but a higher volume of hits. The average against is 240 with San Diego, and it was 127 with Miami. But Brian Hoeing, on the other side of the coin, since going to San Diego, in 11 games, has a 1.13 ERA, and had a 2.70 with Miami. So, in Miami, he wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's just he's been lights out with San Diego. 11 games, 16 innings, 10 hits, 3 runs, only 2 earned, and I think the 2 earned might have come on a home run. So it's not like he's been pitching poorly. Batting average against since he's been there is a 179, and I feel like part of that goes to just he's kind of figuring it out. I like him as a reliever in that role. I remember when he made his major league debut, he started a game against LA, the Dodgers, which welcome to the bigs. That's kind of a difficult way to start your major league career. But I feel like him in that role of, kind of long to middle reliever. And shoot, if he ends up in the back end, he ends up in the back end. But he's been doing. I see him having a career arc of maybe like a Brad Hand. Now that I think about it, because he started with Miami as a starter, he was okay, and then he ended up. I think he was in San Diego when they moved him to the bullpen and made him a back end guy, and he just figured it out. I don't know why that's the pipeline of Miami trading a I don't want to say failed starter, but a project starter to San Diego and them just figuring it out. But that seems to be the trend. But staying in San Diego, we'll go to the next piece, which is somebody who was traded earlier this year, Luis Arraez. Which, I mean, he's Luis Arraez. He's having the year he's having. This feels like old news just because, the trade was so long ago at this point. But 4 home runs on the year, 1 triple with Miami, 1 triple with San Diego, 25 total doubles, 17 of those coming with San Diego. He's played 94 games in San Diego, so he's definitely played a majority of the season with them, hitting .310, OPS of 723. So down from last year, but last year was ungodly good. Last year was arguably an all-timer. He was flirting with 400 for a time, finished with a 354, which is still absurd. Hitting 307 this year, so it's not like he's slacking all that much. He's still a 300 hitter. He's got 7 stolen bases this year, which is interesting. They've had him run more, which is good to see. I mean, that's something that he didn't really utilize when he was in Miami, so I'm glad he's been encouraged to do that more. Only 26 strikeouts on the year, because that's Luis Arraez in 127 games. He doesn't strike out a lot, which is what you love about him. But only 18 walks, too. So he's walked even less than he struck out, which is crazy. Crazy. They've walked him the least this year. I guess they're pitching to him. They'd rather him hurt him than somebody behind him. I'm sure, he'd rather pitch to Luis Arraez than Fernando Tatis Jr. or Manny Machado. So I can see where they're coming from with that. But yeah, he's having a good year by normal standards and not that great a year by his standards, I guess, although his standards are high. He's having an all right year. Moving on, John Birdie, back to the Yankees. Birdie has had a little bit of a disappointing year. I guess not most people, but some of y'all might forget that he was traded early in the season, in the end of spring training, actually. So his whole year has been with New York, save the spring training. But he's only had 55 at-bats this year because he got hurt back in May, and it was only supposed to be a short time that he was out. He has a left calf strain. And he's on a rehab assignment now, so hopefully he comes back soon. But it went from 10-day injured list to 60-day IL, and he's just been out for a good little minute. We hope that Birdman comes back and balls out because he would be probably very helpful in a postseason run for them. Trevor Rogers is the next name I want to talk about, and then we'll get into one or two other former Marlins that I want to kind of highlight. But Trevor Rogers, this is honestly the most disappointing one. I love Trev. I do. Cousin of Cody Ross. I thought that he had the potential to be traded. On the whole, on the year, if you look at his numbers, they're like pretty mid. 4.92 ERA, 124 innings in 25 starts. He's pitched, a good little bit. But since getting to Baltimore, in the 4 starts he's had, 19 innings pitched, 7.11 ERA, 15 earned runs, 2 home runs. So it's not like he's just giving up the long ball. 10 walks to 12 strikeouts. That's really the area of concern. And a batting average against of 338. So, I don't know. I hate to say we fleeced him because there's no way we, would have known his regression would have been so catastrophic. But I guess Miami was the only team he had really pitched with, and he had been with the team since 2020. I mean, he'd been with the team since we drafted him, but with the Major League team since 2020. So, I don't know. It's kind of hard to see a guy that I like and I want to see do well struggle as much as he is. I hope that he figures it out and next year comes out and pitches like a Cy Young candidate. But moving on, I want to talk about one guy who was traded last year that has bounced around just because I was curious about him. Garrett Cooper. He started the year with Chicago. He was picked up on, I want to say, a league minimum contract, a veteran minimum. And he ended up getting, I believe, DFA'd and ended up with Boston. He's currently in the minors, I want to say. Injured list. Yeah, he's on the... Oh, he's currently with Baltimore in the minors. Yeah, okay. So he's with the Norfolk Tide, but he's played with 2 major league teams this year, Chicago and Boston. He was picked up by Boston after Chicago DFA'd him. Then they released him, and he was signed by Baltimore on a minor league contract. So he might get some time this year. He might not. It's kind of up in the air. Another guy who's kind of had a disappointing campaign. He had a good, 12-game stretch with Chicago. Hit 270. Like, not replacement level good. Not like, gonna write home to your mom good. But 12 games, 37 at-bats. He had a round tripper, he had a triple, and he had a double. So he got a couple extra base hits in 12 games. Again, nothing crazy. But that 270 average with a 773 OPS. Again, very short sample size. When he got picked up by Boston, he struggled. Only had 4 doubles, no triples or homers in 24 games, and hit 171, which led to his release. And that's kind of disappointing because he's a guy who, for the longest time you wanted to see do well because of the fact that he was a Rule 5 draft pick, I believe. Or no, we got him in a trade with New York. We acquired him from New York. I can't quite remember how we got him. It was right around the same time as the Stanton deal, but I know it wasn't the Stanton deal. But he was a guy that, was touted as a solid, I don't even want to say prospect, but he performed well and then got hurt. And then the next year performed well and then got hurt. And then it performed well and got hurt. And it's like, all right, when are you going to put it together, stay healthy? His first 3 full, I guess if you want to call it that, campaigns with Miami, 19, 20, and 21. 2019, he hit 281. 2020, shortened campaign, 283. And 2021, he hit 284. But that's in 107, 34, and 71 games. So altogether, between those 3 years, that's a pretty good, trio of... That would be I can't even say 2 good years, because that's only about 210 games out of a possible 324. So underperformed. The best ability is availability, and he didn't have any availability with Miami. I don't know. It's another one of those guys. I just wanted to check in and kind of see how he was doing, because I hadn't really looked into it all year. One guy that I do want to talk about, and I'll keep it relatively brief, is Griffin Conine. Made his major league debut against Colorado for Miami. His actual debut was underwhelming. It was a pinch hit, and he struck out on, I think, 4 pitches. Or 5 pitches. He had a good little at bat, but ended up striking out. And his next day was better. He missed a home run by a foot, a literal foot. If the wind was blowing, apparently it would have been a home run. But he ended up with a triple. So his first major league hit is a 3-bagger. Then he ended up hitting a double later in the game. He had a pretty good game that day. Had another base hit or 2. Is currently in 13 at-bats, has 3 hits, hitting .231. So not crazy, but again, it's like 4 games. So I'm glad to see Griff up. I was waiting to see Griff. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I'm a little sad that it's cutting into Jesus Sanchez's playing time, because I feel like he also needs the time out there, and also you want Stowers to see time out there, which you could play Stowers at first. He's played first before. I feel like that might be a way to go. Get him in the lineup. You could put Bride at second or something, because he has time there. Berger at third. I don't know. I want to see the guys come up and have their chance to perform, but I don't want to see it take away from the main guys that we have in the lineup. Like, I want to see Berger get his full campaign. I want to see Sanchez get his full campaign. And I also want to see all the other guys that we have, that we need to see going into next year. But you never know when, somebody's going to just light it up. So I'm glad Griff is getting his time in the limelight, getting his shot. But moving into the underrated player of the episode is kind of what I'm going to call it now. Former Marlin, traded to Oakland, J.J. Bleday. He has had some kind of a breakout year. Not overly, I guess, outperforming. He's outperforming expectations, but he's not, in the MVP conversation or anything. Hitting .251, 20 home runs, so power's come in good little bunches, and his OPS is just shy of 800. Baseball Savant has his batting run value at a 73. His fielding value is just above average. His arm value, he has one of the strongest arms in the game, which we kind of knew he had a strong arm. He was a good outfielder at Vandy. And, I mean, he's average or above average in a lot of categories. The one thing that he's actually, I guess, his weakest part, or his weakest stat offensively, is the hard hit percentage. He's in the 27th percentile. He only hits the ball hard 36.7% of the time he hits the ball, which just speaks to how much better he will be. He's primed for a good year because he hits the sweet spot a lot, but he doesn't hit it hard a lot. So if he can make an adjustment, I haven't watched pretty much any of his games this year, save maybe 1 or 2 when Miami played him. But he has the opportunity. He is primed to have a good year next year. He has a lot of... What I'm trying to say, his K percentage is low. His walk percentage is high. His chase percentage is low. Squared up percentage is above average. He's got, kind of middle of the pack bat speed, but you can do a lot with that. So especially when he goes to Vegas, the dry air there, the ball is gonna carry. I'm curious to see. I think they're moving in 26. Let me look it up real quick. Okay, so looked it up. Apparently they're moving to Vegas in 2028, but they're moving out of the Coliseum this year. At the end of this season will be the end of the Oakland Athletics playing in the Oakland Coliseum. And I believe it will be the end of the Oakland Coliseum having an athletic team in it, because the Raiders moved to Vegas already. But the A's are going to play in Sacramento for 2025, 26, and 27. So they're not going to move to Vegas until 2028, but they're going to play in the Sacramento River Cats ballpark until that time. So it'll be an interesting transition. I think they're going to be building the stadium in Vegas next to Tropicana Hotel, which maybe there will be a second Tropicana field in the MLB, at least for a minute until the Rays finish theirs. Or maybe they'll finish theirs in 2028. The Rays will finish their new ballpark in 28, and then we'll just transfer the name Tropicana Field to Oakland. We'll see. But yeah, I think that's. I want to. I don't know. It's interesting to see what's going on with that. But going back to JJ, he's one of those guys that it felt like he was just gonna flame out, and the A's have figured something out. The A's have a couple guys that have just kind of figured it out between JJ and Brent Rooker. Rooker, a little more in the mainstream, but if JJ can kind of reach some level of that, I mean, shoot, even what he's doing now, if he can keep this up for the rest of his career, he's going to be in pretty dang good shape. The one pitch that it seems like he struggles on the most, JJ, is changeups, which, I mean, if you're facing a guy with a good fastball and you sit fastball, it's easy to kind of, get caught up with it. He's eaten fastballs. It's really, it just looks like he's struggling with breaking pitches, all in all. And we'll see if he can do what, Brent Rooker did last year and correct his issue with breaking pitches, because that was Brent Rooker's biggest deal, is he just struggled against breaking balls. And JJ's in the same boat, hitting 301 against fastballs and 184 against breaking pitches. 14 home runs on fastballs, 5 on breaking pitches. Off speed, hitting 210, so not much better than the breaking balls. But if he can figure that out, if he can, just kind of see he can protect against fastballs and just start looking for breaking pitches, kind of follow the Brent Rooker route, he could be a menace next year. You look at him hitting, I'm going to ballpark at 275, 280 with 30 if he stays healthy. I could see that. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can hear it or not. I'm a little congested. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up there. I appreciate y'all for listening. I know it's a little shorter than normal, but all in all, I appreciate all the support I get from y'all. Hope y'all keep coming back. Hope y'all keep listening. Give me suggestions for what I should talk about. And, yeah, have a good one, y'all.